Next on the docket, several victims of the Hoboken train crash. They have notified New Jersey Transit they are planning to sue. Now, that crash, as you well know, killed one person and injured more than 100 others. Federal investigators, they're analyzing the second black box that they recovered, hoping that it will provide vital information that will give them a cause of the crash. Now, reports are saying the train could have been traveling 2 to 3 times the 10-mile-per-hour speed limit as it entered into the station. We also know the train was not equipped with a safety measure called positive train control. Also, the black box that they found, the first one, guys, it was obsolete. The thing was from '95. It wasn't functional. We also know the feds have been investigating New Jersey Transit for more than 5 years. The amount of operators that were either under the influence of either drugs or alcohol, a whole host of other safety violations, etc. So, and I'll start with you, Doug, because you've been involved in class action suits or whatever. Do we first have to define what the expectation should be of a traveler before you can figure out what the damages are? Or if I just show that there's negligence here on the part of the railroad, that while no one's promised perfect safety 100% across the board, they didn't do any of a multitude of steps that they should have, and that's enough for me.
Well, in this case, I don't think you have to define the expectation, because your expectation is clearly that you won't be on a train that smashes through the train station. But you do have to, this case could get complex because you have machinery, that's the train itself, you have the conductor, you have the procedures that are in place. You have a lot of moving parts here, a lot of people that could have liability in this case. If something failed mechanically, was it the fault of the train itself? Was the conductor trained properly? Did he get enough sleep? There's a lot of things, so it's not as clearly the person that is not at fault is the person that was injured in this case, but the person who is at fault is yet to be determined.
Now, I would think there's a whole bunch of defendants, more than just New Jersey Transit. New Jersey Transit clearly, because they employed this person and his actions obviously weren't protocol. But I had the congressman on who sits on the Transportation Committee, one of the members, who was the one who authored legislation that created a fund that states across this country could access. I think there's some matching funds to it, but basically that positive traction here, which in this case would have stopped the train. If it's going beyond a certain limit, that's what it does. It automatically overrides the human element and stops it, so it can't be traveling at 30 miles an hour potentially when it should be going 10 as it enters in to the train hub. But they didn't do it. They represented that they were going to have by 2014 a certain number of them done, and then by 2016 everything finished. They're not going to make that deadline either. So where can I look to the state, Jimmy, to say, time out? You didn't do what you were supposed to here, let alone other safety measures. You could have had a second conductor in there. I mean, you could have done a bunch of other things, and that they're under investigation for running a poorly run operation here, drugs, alcohol, safety violations, like I said. At what point does the state have to take ownership of an agency, or does it stop with New Jersey Transit?
Well, the failure to implement safety measures that you have agreed should be implemented, thus recognizing the lack of safety, may create some liability. The fact of an investigation, on the other hand, if the investigation is for things that are unrelated here, for example, if there is no conductor misconduct in terms of drugs or anything like that, I would imagine, and Doug would speak to that certainly more fluently, would not create the liability. I think that the liability here, though, is amongst those people that Doug has spoken about. The transit authority, the conductor, perhaps the manufacturer, if there's a defect in the train. I think that that's where the liability is going to lie. The extent to which there's relevance for saying you're going to implement this particular item so that the train can't do what it did is, to me, an admission that you know that it could happen.
Now, say you're representing somebody that was injured, and a few people are injured critically in addition to the fatality. They come to you and say, Mayo, who do I look to for this? Now we find out that the conductor, and this is not facts and evidence, I'm making it up, but he was on one of these. Let's say he was texting. Now, he probably doesn't have a huge nest egg that he's sitting on if he's the conductor here for New Jersey Transit. But beyond going after him directly for negligence and New Jersey Transit, are you suing anyone else?
Well, I think, again, you'd want to look and make sure that the manufacturing is accurate and that it was adequately done. So if there are any defects in the product, you may have a products liability case.
But isn't it the state's job to make sure that its residents, when they get on that train, right, are getting on a safe train?
I think that one of the things that I would look at is, okay, how much does it cost to put the remedial devices on the train to slow it down? And if it's something that's easily accomplished, that's pretty simple, that can be done, let's say, in a few hours per train, why is it taking you 2 years to do it? And you'd look at that, look at what progress has been done, has been achieved, and then I'd look at the due diligence of New Jersey Transit, and also who is New Jersey Transit reporting to.
Okay.
So are the people who monitor New Jersey Transit doing their jobs? If they're not, we're entrusting millions and millions of people to ride safely on New Jersey Transit.
And just for me, everybody, there's no excuse to have a black box in a train after what we saw with Spike Dival, after we saw a train in the Amtrak that was going down in the DC corridor. We've seen other examples of this. For that, that's negligence, to me at least. Maybe not criminally here, but that's not what a state should or shouldn't be doing. And if they're not accessing funds to try and make the train safer, shame on them. And finally, the union representing the engineers, et cetera, here has fought to have a camera inside the well of these operators that are doing it. Now, again, this isn't somebody talking about an Uber driver or whatever. This is somebody representing for public transportation, and when we need to find out after the fact what happened, I don't want to hear that they don't want to have a camera on because God forbid they catch somebody sleeping or somebody doing something they shouldn't be doing. That's the job, and I hope that also would change. I'm off my soapbox. All right, coming up next. As soon as the Times published one of Donald Trump's tax returns, Mr. Trump threatened legal action. I know we've heard the story before, but we're going to discuss why that actually could backfire on the guy right on your screen.